the suffocating dark of the ancient delta, there is no divine majesty to be found, only the crushing weight of profound isolation, pressing relentlessly against the woven reeds. The stagnant air hangs incredibly heavy with the metallic, undeniable scent of fresh blood. Death was once the absolute, uncompromising end, an impenetrable void where even the highest gods were forced to surrender to the devouring infinite sands. In this hidden sanctuary of sorrow, the bitter, suffocating perfume of burning resin fails to mask the biomechanical reality of decay. It is an environment of profound secrecy and terrifying desperation, where the natural order has been violently, irrevocably shattered.
Hold the shattered god. Bind the limb, seal the rot, defy the dust, gnaw at.
Through the suffocating gloom, the trembling, exhausted hands of a weeping goddess emerge into the flickering lamplight, her sacred skin violently stained with myrrh and the grim evidence of butchery. She works with a frantic, terrifying precision over the table. She is aggressively packing coarse, jagged mounds of natron salt into the torn, lifeless, and rapidly decaying vessel of a murdered king. The brutal friction of the salt against dead flesh echoes loudly in the absolute silence of the tent. I will not surrender your memory to the devouring dust. I will defy the turning of the stars to keep you whole. With every agonizing knot she ties in the suffocating shadows, she is not merely burying a husband. She is desperately, defiantly engineering the physical architecture of forever. The claustrophobic sanctuary offers no refuge from the brutal, oppressive heat of the Egyptian night, operating instead as a stifling crucible where immense grief is distilled into desperate action. Thick, woven papyrus walls bleed with the ambient, inescapable marsh humidity. Aggressive chiaroscuro lighting slices mercilessly through the dense gloom, powered by the sputtering, inconsistent flames of castor oil lamps. They cast monstrous, shifting shadows against the walls, transforming the intimate space into a theater of grotesque, elongated phantoms mocking her labor. The shadows in this place do not offer peace or rest. They hide the jagged teeth of the desert, waiting patiently for my strength to fail.
Hold the shattered god. Bind the limb.
Beyond the fragile woven boundary, the roaring, hot winds of Set howl with vindictive, relentless fury. It is the sound of chaos attempting to penetrate the sacred space, carrying the aggressive, maddening buzzing of endless marsh flies drawn to the slaughter. The vile swarm is held at bay only by the thick, choking barrier of burning frankincense smoke. It is a constant, exhausting battle of attrition against a hostile environment that viciously demands its inherent right to consume the forgotten dead. Nature itself aggressively demands its violent right to erase the existence of the king. To combat the relentless march of rot, the raw earthly materials of resurrection are hoarded in the stifling dark. Immense, heavy clay jars of golden cedar oil sit beside endless, unwound miles of stark, bone-white linen waiting to be stained. Yet, beneath the stinging perfume of the sacred resin lies the horrifying, unavoidable realization of the desecration. The body of a king does not lie in repose. It rests in disjointed pieces upon the wooden table, a gruesome, sacred puzzle. To look upon the broken sovereign of the two lands is to gaze into the terrifying shattering. The physical toll of this unprecedented defiance strips away all illusions of divine majesty. Sweat pools heavily at her collarbone, and her painfully labored breath mingles with the thick, choking smoke as she is forced into grueling, horrific manual labor. The degradation of a supreme divine being is absolute. Her knuckles are raw, her pristine garments soaked in the grotesque fluids of mortality as she wrestles with the uncompromising, heavy physics of dead weight and rapidly failing, corrupted human tissue. I am a creator of the cosmos, a weaver of the sky, reduced to a desperate laborer in the grim slaughterhouse of unforgiving time.
Binds the dark. Hold the shattered car. Bind the limb, seal the rot, defy the dust.
She reaches deep into the heavy clay jars, pulling forth thick, viscous handfuls of golden cedar oil. She smears it aggressively over the cold, lifeless, and unnaturally rigid skin, her hands slipping and sliding in the gruesome, desperate application. It is an agonizing, physically exhausting, and seemingly futile attempt to halt the inevitable necrosis that creeps across the torn flesh. The slick sheen of the oil creates a sickly, luminous glare under the trembling light of the dying lamps. She wrestles endlessly with a gruesome, sacred puzzle composed entirely of shattered flesh and bone. The profound psychological weight of the puzzle threatens to break her mind. Each severed piece of Osiris she lifts represents a stolen, beautiful memory, now reduced to just another heavy, rotting artifact that must be perfectly, painstakingly aligned and bound. There is no instruction manual for the subjugation of death. She operates on pure, calculating grief, mapping the anatomy of a god while the insidious hum of the flies grows louder, violently crashing against the thinning veil of protective smoke. These hands, which once so powerfully measured the flooding of the Nile, now weigh absolutely nothing within my own trembling grasp.
Hold the shattered car.
Then comes the agonizing, relentless pull of the first bindings. The brutal, abrasive sound of stark, bone-white linen tearing and tightening fills the stifling tent, echoing like the snapping of actual bones as she binds torn muscle to shattered limbs. She works with a terrifying, unrelenting force, pulling the fabric so tight it threatens to cut her own hands. With every single strip applied, she attempts to anchor a wildly fragmented soul against the vast, consuming void of the underworld. Will this earthly salt and woven fabric truly be enough to anchor your spirit when the vast universe eventually forgets the sound of your name? The final blood-stained knot is violently pulled taut, definitively sealing the ravaged form within a rigid, suffocating cocoon of woven thread. The gruesome, sacred puzzle is finally, physically complete upon the heavy wooden table, yet it remains terrifyingly, undeniably hollow. The horrific wounds are hidden, the disjointed anatomy forcibly unified by the sheer will of a grieving widow. But the terrifying reality hangs heavily in the stagnant air. The vessel has been repaired, but the house remains utterly, completely empty. The flesh is bound, the blood is stopped, but the light has not returned to the silent, empty corridors of your ruined mind. Suddenly, a profound auditory shift violently alters the oppressive atmosphere of the embalming tent. The relentless biomechanical sub-bass drone of the underworld amplifies to a deafening roar, physically vibrating the mounds of jagged salt and violently rattling the heavy jars. The chaotic buzzing of the flies is completely silenced, replaced by the overwhelming tectonic pressure of the duat pressing against the fragile papyrus walls. The domain of the forgotten dead reaches out aggressively to claim its delayed, rightful, royal prize. The absolute threshold between the living and the infinite void has been violently breached.
Against the dark.
Isis leans in, hovering agonizingly close over the rigid, linen-wrapped visage. The proximity is absolute, a desperately intimate transfer of divine energy as she forces her own vital breath directly into the silent, unyielding, and terrifying void of his mouth. The incantation begins. The words are not a gentle, hopeful prayer whispered into the comforting dark. They are a raw, guttural command torn violently from a throat that has been utterly ruined by endless days and nights of inconsolable weeping. Awaken from the dust. Defy the rot. Rise from the ashes of your own catastrophic destruction and walk upon the earth once more. It is an absolute, uncompromising declaration of war against the fundamental concept of mortality. The visual peak arrives in a violent, synchronized flare of the burning oil lamps, pushing the aggressive chiaroscuro lighting to its absolute, blinding, cinematic limit. For the first time, a colossal, unified, and truly terrifying shadow of the bound mummy is cast against the woven wall. It is no longer the shadow of a broken man. It is the imposing silhouette of an eternal God. The flesh is no longer merely flesh. It has been transformed into the indestructible anchor of our eternity.
Just love against the dark.
In the suffocating silence that follows the incantation, a microscopic, almost imperceptible shifting occurs within the deep layers of the dried linen wrappings. The oppressive drone stabilizes into a steady, rhythmic pulse, mimicking the incredibly slow heartbeat of a mountain. It is no longer a decaying corpse resting upon the table. It is a sacred, enduring engine of life. In a sudden, incredibly jarring fracture of time and space, the dark, suffocating shadows of the Delta tent instantly, violently dissolve. We are aggressively thrust into the stark, blinding sun and the immense, deafening silence of the modern, arid desert. The claustrophobia is instantly replaced by an overwhelming, staggering sense of monumental scale. The colossal, golden, weathered peaks of the Great Pyramids pierce the impossibly blue sky, casting razor-sharp geometric shadows across the vast, undulating ocean of the golden sands. Behold, the magnificent, incredibly tragic scars left upon the face of the earth by those who learned to intensely fear the coming of the dark. The camera pulls back relentlessly, revealing the hidden, sprawling tombs carved deep into the limestone cliffs of the Valley of the Kings. These are not merely ancient burial grounds. They are vast, impossible cities of stone, engineered to defy the universe. The intimate, desperate tragedy of a single, weeping widow has given birth to vast civilizations of stone.
Eternal scars of stone. The void.
Every monumental stone block dragged across the scorching desert, every gleaming golden death mask meticulously hammered into perfection, and every colossal statue erected to stand defiantly in the shifting, eternal sands carries the exact same fundamental, underlying frequency of terror. They are not merely majestic monuments dedicated to the arrogant egos of forgotten pharaohs ruling over a vanished empire. They are profound physical manifestations of humanity's oldest, most desperate rebellion against the absolute, terrifying finality of death and the void. When we stand before these towering monoliths of antiquity, we are not looking at the triumphs of ancient engineers or the glory of long-dead kings. we are witnessing the physical manifestation of a singular, enduring grief that refused to simply fade into nothingness. Look upon these mighty works and understand the truth. They are all simply echoes of a weeping woman sitting in the dark, trying to hold on to love. And humanity has been desperately building against the